very, very lucky and excited to have Dr. Chris Eiermann, who is originally from Germany, and he studied vet medicine in Utrecht and has been working in UK for more than 2 decades. Not only is he an established, experienced vet, he used to be a business owner, and now, he's just doing a bit of locuming work and also doing a bit of business consultancy. So we are very, very lucky, very excited to have him with us today, and we're going to ask him about his journey.
It's not a straightforward question at all, because I don't really know the answer to it. My mom keeps telling everyone that I wanted to be a vet from the age of 5. And obviously I can't remember being 5. But I never ever wanted to be anything else. So I never looked left or right. There was no plan B. At first it was the language barrier, because I had to learn an entire language from scratch. Once I got over that hurdle, it was hard work. It was a 7-year course, and it was just very intense. There was not a lot of time for partying. It was just the sheer amount of data we had to go through in order to prepare for exams was sometimes a bit overwhelming. I guess you learn to study as time goes by. The amounts of information seem to be ever increasing as the years went on, but I think you learn to be more effective if you're studying. And I studied less in the later years, but just happened to be more efficient, I think. So again, it was a language barrier, because I came from Germany, didn't know Dutch, so then I had to learn Dutch. So then for 7 years I spoke nothing but Dutch, and so all the information seemed to be stored in the Dutch segment of my brain. And then obviously the English people don't speak Dutch so well, so I then had to, being a new graduate, had to transform it from my Dutch section to the English section. That sometimes was a bit complicated, but they were very supportive, and altogether it was good. East Anglia, I stayed for 2 years as an assistant vet. It was good. Yeah, it was really good. Nice people. I did get the support I needed as a new grad in the UK. No, it's a good experience. I don't know. You'd probably have to ask the pet owners, but I was always interested in communication, and the way I think I appreciate that what we do in small animal veterinary is more or less a luxury. We're dealing with emotions. 100 years ago, something like that, our profession barely existed. It was only equine and farm animals. We have a job because people are emotionally attached to their pets, and I think I always appreciated that bond. You can't bulldoze through a consultation telling them what to do. You have to appreciate owners' emotions and their financial restrictions. I always give people options. I try not to use too much medical terminology. And yeah, I like to believe it works and people appreciate that. Not talking down on them and appreciating their side of the coin.
It sounds as though you have got quite a natural instinct of, number one, actually enjoying communication, and number two, knowing that you're dealing with emotions. Because where do you learn this from? Was this from vet college?
Most of us, we sometimes just develop our own style, and no one much helps you with that, I think. And I think I've probably just been lucky finding a way which owners seem to accept, seem to like. Well, you know, we often refer to as money-minded. I really hate that, because we all work hard, and I think few people, or if anyone, any one of us becomes a vet because of the earning potentials, surely there's other professions where you would earn more for less effort. So when people say that's upsetting, that obviously can be a perception which you know you naturally try to counteract. I think the general perception, you know, I can only speak from my little world and the clients I see. Most of them they're emotional when they come in. They're generally grateful for what we do for them. Unfortunately, the finances are often the restricting factor, and I think that's where the perception can be skewed. You know, we try to do the best, technology moves on, things become more expensive, and then people get the impression that we as vets are very expensive. But you've got your own business. I had my own business, and in the end, you know, I used to employ 20 people, so that's quite a big-ish system. So costs are high. You try to provide the very best service for the pet. People just don't see the effort involved, all the materials, the technologies, the time, and you just have to, it's just a matter of communicating it. And I find if you have the luxury of time, you know, when you can explain why a procedure costs what it costs, then most people are quite understanding.
Yeah, that's very, very
because
true.
we're not money grabbers. But like in medicine, you know, compared to 20 years ago, so much has happened, and the equipment available to us in a first line practice is so very different from 20 years ago. But all that equipment obviously needs paying for and needs to be maintained. People don't see that, they just assume it's all there. So it's generally a matter of communication, to yeah, I don't know about the word, counteract that, or dismiss this thinking, thank you, to address this perception of us being money grabbers. I really believe we're not.
That's a very interesting, because after speaking to a few different vets, there is the similar thoughts that, you know, there's a lack of communication.
Very little, very little. Unfortunately, the average pet owner, if such thing exists, without being derogative, I often find has very understanding of their own body and of medicine in general, or biology, physiology, and they often know even less about their dog or cat. So I think they have very little understanding. There are obviously the ones who have informed themselves through Dr. Google, and they have a degree of knowledge. But certainly when it goes beyond neutering and routine procedures, I feel that there's a great lack of understanding. But that's not just about pets. It always bothered me, or not bothered me, it always surprised me that people know more about their car engines than they know about their body, which I know very little about car engines. But
I'm just going to extend on that a little bit. Dr. Google, you mentioned that. So what do you think about Dr. Google? Friend or foe?
Neither nor, you know, if used properly, then definitely friend. I look things up on the internet for sure. You just have to be critical about the source and realize that anyone can put anything on the internet, and that it is very, very important what you read, and you question the source before you accept something off the internet. I just wanted to become either my own boss and or a partner, but I just, at that moment in time, I didn't have the option of becoming a partner. So I would have joined into an existing partnership probably, had it been the right surgery, but that option wasn't there. So I explored my options of opening my own business. But at that stage, I was still reasonably new to the profession and reasonably new to being a vet in this country. And then it did scare me to open up completely on my own, not being born and bred in Britain. You know, I thought, oh, things like employment law and those kind of things. That did scare me. So I appreciated the help, mainly when it came to setting up the business and putting everything in place, contracts, etc. I appreciated the support of an experienced franchise company. It's joint venture was the correct term.
Yeah, that's right, JVP.
Yeah. "20 years ago at university, we did learn little, if any, you know, management skills. You know, you start your own business and suddenly you have to be the HR manager, the business manager, the IT, whatnot. And yes, I got quite a bit of help, but obviously on a day-to-day basis, people can give you IT support, but the interhuman factor is, you know, you have to deal with yourself. And sometimes it's depending on the team. Sometimes it's been great, sometimes it was more difficult. But when I started off with no understanding of running a team, that I did find difficult. Yeah.
That's also a very big struggle personally as well. You know, when I have my own business, and that's where I realized, or slowly beginning to see, and I just wanted to have your take on that. So the way I see it is, vets, we are trained to be vets. And in college, pretty much we are trained to be vets. Not much has been going to management, human resource, or things like that. So hence, vets become bosses almost by default. Like you said, they're offered a partnership, then suddenly you're a boss. And no wonder, to a certain extent, that many vet practices that's very, very badly run. Because it's not because they don't want to run it badly, because they actually do not have the skills. They're not taught how to run the practice, and just vets, bosses by default when they're actually vets. So that's my sort of idea behind. So my question also or my thinking is there any scope for improvement of that? Because that's where the corporates came in. They have all their structure in place, all trained in management, and all your admin, your tax laws, your employment laws, and they come in to fill in the gaps that vets are not able to do on their own to a certain extent. And that's why practices are run as independent practices are run as such, and corporates are as such. Is there any scope, maybe in vet college, to make vets a little bit more management savvy, so that if they want to go into business on their own, they can actually have a little bit more skill compared to just knowing how to treat and diagnose and pretend to be a boss? And you do use the word pretend by default, because they become partners. What do you think about that?
Well, I think absolutely 100% yes. If I think back to my time, and obviously I don't know exactly how things work right now, but I knew from day one that I wanted to be a small animal vet. Yet I had to spend hundreds and hundreds of hours learning about farm animals. That was really hard because I knew I would never use it, and I never used it. You know, if only a fraction of that time would have been used for management skills, easy peasy. I mean, there was so much time I would have had to learn some skills back then. So I don't know. I can only speak for myself, but I would think there's a vast number of students who surely after year 1 or 2 know where they want to go. And I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that vet students still get a general degree these days. They're still allowed to do everything, all sorts of animals, right?
Day one skills incorporate all species as far as I know as well.
I believe so.
Yeah.
So I think that's not from this day and age anymore. The practice is all develops all towards specialism and advanced skills in one area and one area only. The times of mixed practices is, I think, is been and gone. And so you know, time should definitely be used for teaching students some management skills. Yeah, and then in the early days, sorry?
Or at least just not spent on things that they're not interested in.
Yeah.
I sort of, I totally mirror your thoughts, because I remember when I qualified, and this is only back 15 years ago, and after the first year of working in the mixed practice, I knew that there's no way I'm going to be clever enough to know everything of every single species, and that's why I actually felt guilty, because I was doing primarily small animals. I saw a horse once or twice a week, and I was like, if somebody came with a sick horse, I felt guilty for seeing this horse, because I know that they'll probably get much better value for someone who sees a horse every day, rather than me just being an occasional horse vet. And that was where I went to, like I said, small animals really. And even during small animals itself, in the small animal itself, there are little niches. There's just so much to learn. It's very different from, in my opinion, James Harriet days, whereby, you give an injection, give a medicine, and that's okay, and everybody's happy. But I think that there is that switch. And my question, like you asked, if in my second year I decided to go small animals, all those EMS, all those extra seeing practice of all the other species, maybe could have been done to do something else, like communication with the owners, to improve my career, rather than just purely learning diagnostics. But that's just my thoughts.
I like to believe that the School of Utrecht gave us good training. I mean, it was 7 years after all. I guess, like most students, you'd always think, oh, I wish I would have seen more practice during my college days. But we actually did see, I had 2 years in clinics, full-time clinics. So we did see a lot of practice before we got our degree. It was probably all aiming too much at the referral cases. And I remember I missed my first cat bite abscess and thought it was something really exotic or so. I can't remember, but I missed it because I don't think I had ever seen a cat bite abscess, not at university for sure. So, you probably wish that amongst all these referral cases, they would have or have had a first opinion practice on the grounds of the university. Maybe they have got that these days, but at the time, but no, I was reasonably well prepared. Yeah.
Good. I remember another vet, similar sort of interview, another vet mentioned that I know how to do a hemilectomy, but I didn't know how to squeeze anal glands. So that pretty much sums it up. I'm like, I know exactly what you mean.
So I think the specialization is pushing on all the time. People are expected to have advanced skills. Even if you called yourself a GP, then you expected to be an advanced GP these days. You expected to know a vast amount about everything, about every area. Expectations of clients have definitely gone up. on the other side, what we can offer or what referral places can offer has vastly improved. And again, obviously, you need to know about these things so you know when to refer where to. Clients are surely much quicker expressing their dislike or disconcern if something doesn't go to plan. And yeah, that can be stressful. I think I'm now of an age where yeah, I feel often worried about younger colleagues, or I feel very sad if I speak to young colleagues and if I see them really stressed, and if they say, oh, they don't like the job, and I thought, oh no, it's such a beautiful profession, and I feel really sorry if they, you know, have a bad experience in their first job, if they get a few owner complaints, and if that ruins their self-confidence then. But along those lines, I'm sure most people would argue that that's what really has changed.
Yeah, true. And this brings me to our next point, really. So, you know, last year they had the survey, Speeves had a survey to say that, you know, there was a high dropout rate of vets. They did a survey to say how many vets would quit the job if they could afford it. And it came out to be 38%. That's more than a third. And as we know as well, depression is pretty high in this particular profession as well, where vet life, which is the, you know, the sort of Samaritan's version of vets, phone line, the calls, they have been super busy and they've hit their record high last year, doubling in 1 year of people ringing them to say they've got issues. High suicide rates, you know, we are 4 times more likely to sort of commit suicide end our lives compared to the general public, and twice more than the medical profession.
I used to have a young vet working for me. She left the profession early on, and to a degree, it probably was my fault in hindsight because I couldn't give her quite the support she needed. You know, we were a very young business and we suddenly got very busy, and there was only her and myself, and I couldn't give her exactly the full-on support she needed. So support is clearly something which probably pushes young people into frustration and dislike, and then depression maybe in the end. The pressure, you know, of in practices I work at, or my own practices, a decent practice is busy. And that's a bit of a shock if you come from vet school. At companion care in later years, we would see 100 patients every day. And that's not for the faint-hearted. 100 patients a day is an awful lot. And if then things go wrong, and that's stressful. That's really stressful. It's only little me. Obviously, I can't predict the future, but it is probably likely that you know the big groups, they become bigger. That's obviously what they're aiming for. And specialism is forever, you know, thriving and developing referral practices. The likes of Noel Fitzpatrick, as you said, Mr. Supervet. You know, I'm working until last week, I worked at a very old, quite simple independent practice in Plymouth. And it was kind of lovely, the simplicity of things. The staff and the clients were so loyal. A lot of them, you know, have been with the practice for 30 years. The practice exists since 55 years under the same owner. But has become the big exception. It's also fast fast, like life is fast. The veterinary profession has become fast. Unfortunately, loyalty doesn't count for much anymore. If you upset a client or a team member, they're gone, it seems. So you have to work really hard to please and the clients and the staff. I very much like to see independent practices. I see pros and cons of both independent and corporate practices, and it's surely healthy for the profession to have a mix. Yeah, I really hope that we will keep enough independent practices. That's a good thing, for sure. I think I've been super lucky to have chosen a profession, to be able to do this profession, through my parents, etc. To choose a profession which 20 years in still, fulfill me the pride and joy. I think that's the main thing. You speak to lots of people from other professions, and 20 years into the job, there are not that many of us who say, I really like my job. That's the main thing. It's probably pride and joy. I'm proud to be a vet. And I think there's nothing bad about saying that. And yeah.
Good.
I had this many times before, and I'm really quite passionate about our profession, and I'm very positive, and then it almost is like a slap in the face what you said earlier about young people leaving the profession and being depressed, and then there's me who will say to a youngster, it's a great profession, and then I would, if I then would learn that they leave the profession 2 years later, I'd feel horrified. So I try to be critical of myself and not just positive, trying to tell them that the demands are high, that the stress is often quite great, those kind of things, in order to relativate things a little bit. But I would, I think it's a beautiful profession. In the end, it's what you make of it. But there's so many opportunities within the profession. Yeah, it's a beautiful. So the main thing I would tell my 20-year-old mirror image, nice thought, by the way. I did a pseudo PhD, like the German version of a PhD, which altogether took me nearly 4 years, part-time for 4 years. And it was a total waste of time. Not because it was the German version of it, but I'm not academic enough. I never worked at university, and I wish I would have used that time to, do an internship, to do maybe I did a certificate in surgery, but I wish I probably would have done that earlier on. I wish I would have done that to a higher level. So the investing time into practical skills would have been better for me, rather than some research I barely understood myself. That was hard. And I don't know, maybe it's probably realistic to invest into management skills myself. Maybe I could have gone on some more courses, business management, people management. Passionate, beautiful, and rewarding.
Chris, thank you very much. That has been brilliant. I look forward to have a cup of coffee with you soon.